Special Stage 5 and 7 are easily the hardest in the game. This was the first special stage that I had to restart at. So it's a good thing that you can pause and restart, because otherwise you would have to beat a level with 50 rings all over again. The main reason, well, there's multiple reasons. This special stage introduces mines. It's amazing that it took this long to introduce them. Not that I'm complaining. And it also has, it has springs that sometimes is kind of confusing and overwhelming. Like when you see multiple different springs in the same area. And a whole bunch of different spears hovering. So it can be kind of overwhelming of your senses at first, seeing a situation like that. I don't remember if that situation was in this area or in the 7th special stage. But yeah, like the very final section of this special stage is kind of hard because it's so precise with the yellow orbs scattered all over the place. And the only way I was able to beat the special stage was because, well, like again, I'm using a mouse. It's kind of hard when I move so slowly compared to how fast I move with my hand on the stylus. So I had to resort to opening multiple different versions of the emulator and having like 3 different versions of the emulator open at once to cause massive slowdown in the game. And that was the only way I was able to beat special stages 5, 6, and 7 for this playthrough. I'm able to beat them just fine on the DS, but mouse controls just don't work for this. Anyways, I was talking in the previous part about the Sega Pico games that were released after Sonic Drift. So there's Sonic Game World, and the more well-known one was Tales in the Music Maker, which was basically terrible sound effects, the game. It was all about stupid minigames that played public domain classical music under the guise of teaching you about music. But the only part of it where you can actually make music takes up 1 page on the Sega Pico. And it has a nightmarishly awful looking sprite for Tails on the title screen. Just don't understand, like, how low budget was that game? Like, why did they use actual Sonic music? Mario Paint is a better music maker. That is just sad, because Mario Paint wasn't even originally about making music. It was about paint. The game released 8 prototype editions that have significant differences between it and the final game. There's a sound test on the title screen. Pressing up changes the music, and pressing left and right changes the sound effects. The title screen has instruments instead of music notes. No music, and no tails flying on the Pico screen. And some of the music is a work in progress, like the first page has a telephone-style ring on the track and missing instruments like Canon and D. And there's a bug on the first page where if Tails moves towards the absolute left or right of the ground and keeps moving, he can moonwalk. And there's different music on the stop command in the Green Hill Zone, and the music doesn't start right away when you start the level. And the Wall of Music minigame, the Breakout clone, starts with 4 lines instead of 1. The Musical Chairs minigame is only a test with 1 frog, and Tails hopping with a number counter on how many hops have been done. And there's a different Sonic sprite and completely different music on the 5th page instead of reusing the title theme. Was anyone asking for Big to show up? Like, what kind of fan service is this supposed to be? When I unlocked that mission for the first time, I barely even put the effort into beating it. I just failed it, and then gave up because it's so predictable. Like, go figure, he's looking for Froggy because he thinks he's in Eggman's amusement park up in space for some reason. And then he leaves disappointed because Sonic didn't find Froggy. Go figure. Going through the trouble of beating this mission is not worth seeing all of his dialogue. They don't give you nearly enough enemies to make this challenge fair. The only thing good about this mission is that there's no Orbinauts with the spears constantly surrounding them. So, like, it's not like you have targeting ridicules show up over Orbinauts that can damage you when you try to attack them. Because you instinctively, you saw targeting ridicule, so gotta press the A button. and then you get hit. Yeah, this drill wisp controls like ass. At the very least, it makes the water sections a lot more fun. Water sections aren't really a bad thing at all in the boost games. As long as there's like enough... Like, I think the water section should be short. Like, you're going to want to boost forwards and go fast, not stop for bubbles. A good water section should be short, in that case. He misspelled aquarium. How do you misspell aquarium? Like, it had a C in it. Amy is basically written like a bad fanfiction. She's literally all about obsessing over Sonic, and that's it. In Sonic Battle, she was a better character than that. And we're talking about a game where she was so obsessed with trying to get Sonic to notice her that she became obsessed with exercising, starved herself, and literally was putting on weights and was wearing them for the entire game until she took them off to fight. I'm not even joking about that. And at one point in Sonic Battle, Amy even hallucinates Sonic with her, and then Sonic somehow shows up and fights alongside her. And it's not the same Sonic as the one we know because he wasn't talking. I'm guessing that Amy has latent reality warper powers or something, like related to her ESP, because that's the only explanation I could think of for why that worked. My point is, Amy was written pretty badly in Sonic Battle, but at least there, she had a purpose where she was a mother figure to Emerald the robot, and she was like close friends with Cream. Like Cream in Sonic Battle literally said with admiration regarding her, "She's the strongest woman I've ever known." So, even in Sonic Battle, Amy was written better than this game. Because in this game, she's just a fangirl and that's it. And, like, the cutscene after this implies that she has a physiological dependency on seeing Sonic. Because she says that it's been so long since she last seen him that she's getting dizzy from it. So, yeah. I mean, she's still written better than Generations, where she talks as if she only values him as someone she can flirt with. But still. Remember the cutscene that took place after you beat Sonic Adventure 2? They were originally going to have Eggman act all hammy and remind Tails that he was going to try to take over the world again as soon as they got back to Earth. But they decided against it because it would have spoiled the mood. Because the last credits scene was kind of a somber mood. So it's a good thing that they decided not to make Eggman say that. Because it was pretty obvious that he was going to try to take over the world again anyways. And he had just done a sort of heartwarming moment with Tails, where Tails said something stupid in response to what he said, but he was nice to him instead, so. I had a weird time with the mission. Like, there's a glitch involving the laser wisp, where, well, it's not really a glitch. I think it's an anti-cheating measure. Basically, if you go into the mission, and the game knows that you have codes loaded up, then you're going to get a situation where every time you try to laser wisp into the gates that are mandatory to progress, you're going to get shot really high up, and you're going to be stuck. You're not going to be able to do anything because you'll have infinite wisp energy all of a sudden, and so you'll just have to wait for time to run out or restart the mission entirely. Wow. If you rage quit a mission, characters will actually have something unique to say about it, and usually the dialogue is pretty annoying. But yeah, I retried this mission with codes, and the level design forces you to use the glitchy laser wisp to progress. And like, even when I turned off the codes, I still couldn't go through the laser gates, so I had to literally exit out of the emulator with it being saved that the codes were off, and then go back into it. I retried the mission with codes, and this happened. This gave me flashback to when I jumped into the first hang glider in Sky High Zone Act 2, and it shot me upwards past the ceiling, and I had to wait for a time over, because I couldn't do anything. And I don't think that any developer should intentionally program a glitch in a game as a punishment for cheating, because it just causes you to blame the game and think that the game itself has a glitch in it. Like Sonic Chronicles, for example. It's famous for having an unwinnable situation when you get to the Metropolis. But the thing is, that's actually anti-piracy measure that's mainly just exclusive to an old European ROM of the game. And even then, there's a workaround for that anyways. I skipped ahead because it's basically just you going through literally the exact same level design that you already did when you played the actual level. And I just think it's so bad. It's so cheap that they expect you to go through the waterfall section that eats up a whole bunch of your time just to beat it. I mean, really? It should have ended before that. See, she's written like a bad fanfiction. Like saying, marry me and everything. And Sonic's addicted Tails there. Although I don't see why Tails would be opposed to being around Amy when it's not like Amy's in love with him, and they have something in common. Their adoration of Sonic. In different ways, but still. You think they'd be better friends than that. Aquarium Park easily has the worst character events in the game. Because you've got Big the Cat, and then you've got Amy, who's completely one note. Oh yeah, Big shows up twice, by the way. Why did she think it was a good idea to get Big as help for finding Sonic? I mean, she spent the entirety of Sonic Heroes with him. You'd think that she would know by now how useless he is. I mean, he's useful as a power type character, but like, go figure, he had super strength. Of course he would be useful in that sense. Doesn't mean he's going to be useful for finding Sonic. This is a mission where you have to collect 200 rings, and I don't think the level design really works for it. So, ring multiplier code, go! I really love that line from Tails. Like, you guys know we're in the middle of Eggman's base, right? I was really surprised that they actually pointed out the absurdity of the fact that they have these characters randomly showing up in Eggman's amusement park. Like, this is literally a place in space designed for killing Sonic. A lot of these characters have no real reason for being there other than give you missions. This is a boss that I found really unintuitive, and I had to look up a guide to figure out how to beat it when I first played it. How are you supposed to know that you could stomp the arena and fling the enemies right up at the boss? The arena is made out of stone. How are you supposed to know that Sonic's Stomp has enough force that can actually cause it to bend and fling upwards like a seesaw? Not to mention the fact that there's a bottomless pit to the sides and below the seesaw, and so it's easy to get knocked off it and fall to your death. And I died twice without dealing any damage to the boss when I first played it because of that, and I ended up just beating it using a moon jump code so I wouldn't have to deal with getting flung to my death again. There are trampolines below the arena that can catch you, but I don't think they're quite big enough for my liking. I really hate this attack because all it does is waste your time. Like, you can boost to get the laser wisp to attack the boss that way, but you're only going to hit the boss if you're lucky. Like, I don't think the laser wisp makes it obvious enough how you're supposed to aim it. Like, I don't know. That's just me, I guess. They changed the rules on you when it comes to these enemies. The green one electrifies itself, and you have to wait before you can either boost into it to get a wisp, or seesaw, or like fling it up into the boss. But the red enemy doesn't electrify itself, and you can do whatever you want with it right away. You should probably stay in the center of the arena, because if you just stand there, then you're going to get stunned and get cheated out of being able to deal with these guys the way you want when it lands on it. So you're better off staying in the center of the arena. And Another thing is, I didn't catch on to the fact that I was supposed to stomp onto the arena, and that's partly because the arrow that shows up to tell you can stomp, it's barely ever there. Like, it's there for a brief moment, and it can be off screen, which is easy to happen when you're at the start of the boss fight, and you haven't gotten the idea that you should probably stay on the center of the arena, and not the sides, where you're not going, where depending on which part of the arena you're at, well, I don't know, like, I don't think this boss is quite obvious enough what you're supposed to do there. At least you can always make sure you get air by jumping into this thing at the center of it. It's a lot more logical than in the Game Gear games when Sonic spontaneously grew the ability to breathe underwater for the purpose of that boss, only to lose it right afterwards. The Laser Wisp creates two beams of light in front of it, and I'm expected to know which beam of light represents where it's going to go. I like the music for this though. Like, this and the boss of Sweet Mountain has some really badass music. I actually think the DS version is actually the better version of the song. Like, this music perfectly conveys the atmosphere of a boss, and like a robot boss at that. And again, it's a mecha of Eggman's attacking you. Just like in the Game Gear games, like in Sonic 2 for the Master System, and Chaos or Triple Trouble. It's not Eggman himself fighting you. I hate this attack. It's like, it's impossible to jump high enough to dodge those things. And for most of the boss, you can jump into him just fine, but at the end of it, you can only boost or homie attack into him. And again, it's very easy to forget that you can boost in the boss fights in this game. I really don't like this cutscene because it doesn't really make any sense. Like, he's saying that they get along, they're like two peas in a pod, when Yacker just said that all that bouncing around would make him sick. So he disagreed with him. Yeah, I accidentally got back into this boss. Whoops. Oh well. This is a pretty good cutscene because it actually bothers to explain why we should believe that his mind control weapon has enough energy in it to brainwash everyone. Because it says nabbing a giant alien. And everyone's characterized pretty well. I like Orbot's interaction with Cubot. And I like the lines that Eggman has towards them, showing what a bad boss he is. And this, I like how seriously they're taking it. Although, like, the cutscene choreography is not nearly as good. And there's the fact that Tails asks where Yacker is so casually, like, where's Yacker? And Sonic is like, whoa. Him saying that kind of takes you out of it. But I love Tails' line there. It actually gets you emotionally invested in the story. I can't understand them. They're too far gone. I like that. In that tutorial, Tails actually says, go the power, not got the power. I don't really know how they made that mistake.